another 2 minutes. I we can start. Again, thank you all for being here tonight or today, wherever you are. Glad to have you all here.
Hello, Mara. Hello, John. Hello, Nico.
Yeah, hi Mahira.
So many beloved faces.
Yeah, Orly, Pita, Leslie, Rawan. Yeah,
Hey everyone.
Come on.
hi Rawan.
We're only waiting because we see people still joining. So just
Yeah,
a couple more minutes of patience. We see our participants joining and everybody. So
Oh, here's Natalie. Hi, Natalie. Hi, Muhammad. Hika. Wasim. Hi.
Wasim.
Hey everyone.
Alan
Good to see
Wasim.
you.
Hey guys, what's up?
hello, hello.
How's it going?
Great.
Great, very excited for this.
Alan Nirit. Orly.
Alan.
Arda, you are our greeter.
Yeah.
A reminder for everyone, if it's possible, just to add your name and your organization name, please.
And I think we shall start. We want to respect the time for everybody who's here, and if anybody joins, then they will just join right in. So welcome to East Storytellers launch event. So great to see you all. My name is Noah. I'm the CEO of PENDULUM.
And I'm Ron, I'm creative director at PENDULUM, and we're a creative agency for social change. And we also had the honor and great pleasure to produce this project along with ALLMEP and Creative Hope. We are beyond thrilled to have you all with us tonight to present the second cohort of East Storytellers.
So a little bit about this project. East Storytellers is first and foremost a platform to share the voices, share the stories of peace activists with the aim of challenging the status quo in our region of the world. We started working on this specific cohort, the second cohort, at a very challenging time for the peace building community. As you probably know, bringing together Palestinians and Israelis is never to be taken for granted. Especially if it involves this kind of exposure that you will also see today. But following the violence that we saw and experienced in May, the task this time was even harder.
Nonetheless, we were fortunate enough to have worked with an amazing group of peace activists. We dug deep into the essence of their activism and explored ways to sharpen up their skills on how to create engaging, thought and action-provoking stories. This year, we chose to focus on what drives our participants' activism, what makes them dedicate their lives to the pursuit of peace, and what sort of future they're working to build.
And we also had the privilege of collaborating with a group of experienced storytellers, artists, writers, human rights advocates who mentored our participants. They helped them create even more accurate and engaging stories, and they are here with us tonight. You will get a glimpse of the work that was done in this program and hear from some of our participants and some of our mentors. And we also have with us tonight members of our jury who read and heard and viewed the stories of our activists. So thank you all for being here.
Yes, thank you all. We really hope that this event and the campaign that will follow will highlight our activist stories and give them the stage they deserve. Our goal here is that this endeavor, East Storytellers, will go on for years to come, adding more and more voices of these brave activists and inviting others to join our cause. So without further ado, we can start our evening and share with you what we've been working on. Thank you all again for being here and for helping to make this project come to life. Thank you.
Just give me a second.
My name is Warda.
Huda.
Yara.
I'm originally from Gaza.
Born and raised in Israel.
East Jerusalem, Sheikh Jarrah.
My fear is me walking down the street and having a bullet fired towards me.
Sometimes I feel that we're forgotten.
I am afraid of that piece of our identity that has to do with victimhood. It's paralyzing.
To be honest, I feel that we've been going from bad to worse for the last 70 years or so.
I'm a peace activist and I live here and fight here and trying to overcome the challenges that we have here because this is my home.
Being an activist, it gives me a lot of power.
The alternative of not being able to do this work is to give up on people.
And I'm afraid of the impact on all, on the Israelis and the Palestinians, on our children and grandchildren.
I don't want any child in the world to live through what I lived.
Just try and open your eyes. Look around you. Do you really believe that what's going on here is normal? Think about what you can do and others can't in this land. Do you really believe that's just?
I believe in the good in people.
I believe that a conflict that we pass on to our children is a conflict that we lost.
I believe in equality.
Love.
If it's worth praying for, it's worth working for.
I believe in peace because I have a choice to fight for the rights of those who don't have that same choice, who can't stand up, speak up to their leaders and their oppressors.
Our focus should be on listening to the story that make us feel uncomfortable.
In this situation, small steps is the solution.
If you want to break the status quo, move, implement, put words into action, and soon enough, we'll get there.
Bring the voices of young Israelis and young Palestinians into the debate.
And if we can be there, where decisions are being made, where our voices are being heard, the outcome would be different.
Peace is justice. Peace is equality. There is no shame in peace.
The shame is not including many more people who have the same need. Peace is a need.
Now, can we have a round of silent muted applause, please, for the people who helped us produce, direct, edit this video, and also, of course, a big thank you to the stars of this evening and to this whole project, our participants, the activists that you will get to know through this evening and on the project website and campaign. So Rawan, Pita, Micha, Moritz, Mahmoud, Leslie, Warda, Amira, and Natalie, it's a pleasure to create with you, and we're proud to call you our partners and friends. Thank you all very, very much. And now I'm very happy to invite John Linden, Executive Director of ALLMEP, Alliance for Middle East Peace, the region's largest and fastest growing network of peace-building NGOs with over 150 organizations now members. All the voices you'll hear from and East Storytellers are drawn from those members, and John has been working with this community for well over a decade. John, the stage is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ram. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And of course, thank you to all of the participants, the mentors, the judges that you'll be hearing from over the course of this event, but also in the larger context over what we'd like to do in the next month or so. To put it back in the context that Noah and Ram set out at the top of the call, this has been a really challenging year for everyone who cares about peace in the region. In the violence that we saw in May, I mean, it was devastating and had lots of novel elements that were particularly troubling around that intercommunal violence taking place in mixed cities. But the other novel element was the presence and activism of Israelis and Palestinians together, organizing, mobilizing, demonstrating for peace and for equality right in the teeth of the conflict. And that hasn't happened at the same scale in previous rounds of violence. And it's a reason to be cautiously, if not optimistic, determined. Part of the problem we have is those voices are marginalized, they're delegitimized, and they're really not amplified by the media and by third parties who prefer to tell a very rigid and repetitive story about what happens between the Mediterranean and the Jordan. So the ask that we would have for everyone participating and watching this evening is to try and share these stories. Hopefully you'll be as inspired by them as we are, but also encouraged by what might be possible, that snapshot of the positive that we saw in those places back in May over those 11 days, that it can be amplified and it can resonate much further than was the case back in May, and can prevent and stall violence like that from occurring, and instead build equality in its place. Those voices need your help. So whether you have contacts or networks in media, in politics, in entertainment, in the world of arts, anything that can help to amplify them over the coming month and help not just tell a different story, because this isn't just, it's not about trying to reshape the narrative about Israel-Palestine, it's trying to reshape the reality, because the activists you'll be hearing from, if they have that encouragement, that strength, that amplification, they can do more every day to achieve their shared agenda that they work together for. So thank you for your help, for your participation, and a big thank you to our partners, Bait of Hope, and of course to the Pendulum team for putting all this together.
Thank you so much, John. Yeah, we're proud to be your partners for this project and many more to come. And now we're honored to introduce one of the members of our jury, Dr. Ahmed Abu Akel. He is a cognitive and social neuroscientist, a research fellow at the Institute of Psychology, University of Lausanne, and a lecturer of experimental cognitive psychology at the College of Humanities, EPFL. His research made contributions to understanding the breakdown of social cognition and empathic abilities in mental health conditions and the role they play in intergroup conflict and dynamic. So very, very relevant to our cause here today. Ahmed, thank you for joining us, and the stage is yours. Just if you can unmute yourself.
Thank you so much for affording me the opportunity to join your initiative and be part of it and witness the amazing work that you've been doing. So I'd like to congratulate all the storytellers, the people who helped through the process, and I cannot underscore the importance of doing this. So I would like to share with you a few points of reflection on the power of storytelling, and also maybe a story of mine that might be connected to the theme that you were asked as storyteller to highlight, which is why do you do what you do? So the power of storytelling lies not just in communicating, obviously, or documenting acts of empathy or peace building, but in my view, it is also in of itself a process by which you help develop your abilities that are necessary for empathy and peace building. So through a story, you afford the opportunity for the reader or the listener to experience the event that transcend both time and space. So it becomes available for future generations and for people who have not witnessed that act. So storytelling is a powerful medium in that sense. But it also, as I said, it allows you as a storyteller to develop those tools that help you continue being empathic and care for the well-being of others. And that is because when you tell a story, you inevitably have to take the perspective of the other person. So it's really important to actually not just be storytellers, but make sure that we actually create a generation of storytellers, because these storytelling afford the opportunity to develop the building blocks of empathy and being aware for the need of other people. Storytelling can also be a point of entry, particularly in the context of conflict. So in context of conflict, inevitably it's between an in-group members and out-group members. So to mind came the novel by Abraham Bilo Yehoshua, which was termed Haven Hebrew, or The Lover. It was, I think, one of the first times that in post-1948 Israeli literature, that a novelist, a Jewish novelist, actually gave voice to an Arab character, to a 14-year-old Palestinian kid who was presented. His name was Naim, which is actually an interesting name because it means pleasant in Arabic and Hebrew. He was a complex character. He was ambitious and intelligent. Through that story, for example, the reader from the in-group member will for the first time will reflect on the other person. Palestinians as individuals who are humans, who have feelings, who have complex characters, which different than unfortunately the forces that might be present in some groups to perpetuate the hatred and the conflict through the derogation and the dehumanization of others. So storytelling is a powerful point of entry that allow the other people from the in-group versus the out-group to reflect on each other. And lastly, I would like really to share with you a story that is fitting of the theme that you have been asked to highlight in your stories, and that is what you do, what you do. In other words, why you continue to work for change, and for that matter, why keep on storytelling. So this is a reflection that my late friend, Dr. Emile Bruno, unfortunately, we lost him last year to cancer. He was a social neuroscientist, who was a peace activist. And the question that was laid on his mind is that not actually why you do work for social change, but why do you continue to work for social change? And in his view, this is a problem that many burned out activists face. It is what Emile called Sisyphus problem. As you know, Sisyphus is the Greek character who was doomed to eternally roll a massive boulder uphill and only to have it roll down just before reaching the summit. So many disgruntled activists have predicted for Emile that the frustration of working for social change would dim his fire and his fortitude as it had theirs. But Emile had a different mind. He said, I don't think it will happen. He said, I don't think it will happen because I have brought to realization that quickly becoming a philosophy, what he called the Sisyphus philosophy. In his mind, his Sisyphus story as activist, it can only become a tragedy if he doesn't like pushing the boulder or if he's fixated on the summit. So instead, he imagined, what if Sisyphus had a friend there to help him push? What if they make games of it and take different route every time? What if they really sang while they work? And what if they really enjoyed the exertion and get stronger in the process? In his mind, the premise is set, the boulder must be pushed. So, but whether it is a comedy or a drama or a tragedy, I think it's up to the one who's pushing. So why continue work for social change or for justice, even in the wake of frustrated outcomes? Emile said, because he wanted to do the right thing, because I wanted to help love grow, because I want to continue changing myself. And because no matter where the boulder rolls, I enjoy the pushing. So I hope that you continue on storytelling what you do.
Beautiful, Ahmed, and super, super fascinating, important to hear. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And now I'd like to present another member of our jury, Nico Daswani. Nico is an arts director, cultural leader, and two-time Emmy Award-winning executive producer with a 20-year track record of creating inclusive change. He has collaborated with some of the world's most inspiring and influential artists and cultural institutions to develop artistic projects that advance cross-cultural dialogue, inclusion, and respect for the planet. Nico, please take it away.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for this wonderful opportunity to be on the jury for this year's selection, and a big thanks to all of you, all the activists and peace builders who took a creative leap to share your stories. I was very inspired to learn about your journeys, your victories, your struggles. Your stories reminded me that change does not happen overnight, that leaders like you have great stamina, need great stamina, and through your stories you demonstrate also the humility that you're part of a larger process, that you are in some ways shepherds and stewards, and that you have been inspired by others, and you will inspire those who will take on the baton from you when the time comes. By sharing your stories, of course, what you do is you're helping shape a narrative of peace. Today, because everything feels so complex, many of us gravitate to simplistic narratives that can explain the world in a more manageable way. And these simplistic narratives end up fueling much of the dichotomies. You're in or you're out, you're with us or you're against us. And these simplistic narratives are bridge breakers. And your work is the opposite. It's about bridge building. But in the space of stories and narratives, the opposite of simplistic is not complex. The opposite is it's simple. Simple is the opposite of simplistic. And simple doesn't mean that it's not rich and nuanced. It means that your story actually is universal, that anybody and everybody can connect with it, that it really truly captures the essence of the human condition. It goes straight to people's heart. And so these universal, simple, but not simplistic stories, they de facto build bridges. And of course, that is the hardest thing to achieve as a storyteller. However, if you consider the extraordinary impact that a single story can have on a people, on a nation, on a whole consciousness, then it's worth the trouble. Much of how we live and see the world is actually mediated through narratives, and especially through the repetition of certain narratives that condition over time what we consider to be normal. And so in which case narrative and reality really intermix. So what narratives can we create that capture the imagination? And from an activism point of view, how do we repeat these narratives over time so that they end up becoming the new norm within a generation or one generation later? Your stories are authentic because they are you. And so I encourage all of you to continue to work on the craft of telling your story, because again, it can have as much impact as the work that you do. So thanks again so much for allowing me to be part of this process, and congratulations to you all for participating.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe this is also a chance to say thank you to all of the jury members, Isabel, and Gabi. I think all of you are here, so thank you so much for your help and giving feedback to the participants. And of course, we will share the results of that feedback in the later event announcing the winners. And now we would like to show you a little bit of the website that we will launch today and that you will be invited to share throughout your communities. And I'm happy to present Wasim Almasri. He's the regional program manager at ALLMEP. He's a third-generation Palestinian refugee born and raised between Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza. He worked for the International Committee of the Red Cross in Gaza for 5 years and has over 10 years of experience in cross-border and civil society work with a focus on grassroots, alumni, and leadership program development. Before joining the ALLMEP team, he served as the Director of Communications for the One Voice movement in Palestine and later as the Deputy Director of the Zimam Foundation, where he remains today as a board member. Wasim, thank you. The stage is yours.
Thanks, Noah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm going to try to share my screen quickly before my kids start screaming in the background. All right. Can you guys see my screen? Give me a thumbs up. Nice. Great. So first, I want to thank PENDULUM for the creative process behind this. It's been a work in progress, and it's been an amazing work in progress. This is the video we saw. I'm going to try to help you navigate the website a little bit and give you a little bit of perspective and backstory on how we got here. So this is the video we created today that you saw earlier, obviously. We'll share more links at the end of the session, so you could hopefully share these videos on your own socials. We're going to get back to see our stories that are on. First, I want to share the part about the founders. I know Mehran Baitel-Hober here. Thank you, Mehra, for joining us throughout this journey. Obviously, ALLMEP, PENDULUM. Going back a little bit here. This is an important part about why this cohort was created. And I think we'll see throughout the stories that there is a main theme. Why do we do what we do? And how we got here, and creating this culture of co-resistance together as a community. Giving a little bit of feedback here. This is the main window where most of our second cohort stories exist. You will hear from some of these activists today, so they could share their stories. We'll show you some examples in a bit. This is the button that goes back to the first cohort. We'll also show you this in a bit, but first here you could find more information about our mentors. And thank you so much for helping the second cohort get to this point. You could also just pretty much learn about any of our mentors here today, their backstories, the bios, and obviously the jury as well. All right, going back up a little bit. Let's talk about the stories that we have. I'm gonna choose, I'm gonna go with Amira today. All right, so this is a creative process that's been happening that we tried to achieve for a while, because we wanted to project not only the stories that these activists go through, but also some of their personality on their own personal photos. And I think that was the aspiration that Ram and the team of PENDULUM also worked in here regionally, at least. You could see the projection of some of these photos we chose on Amira. Her story, you could read all of it here. It's a section about some of her theories of change and what she wants to see in the future. Obviously, all these photos are taken by Amira. They make more sense for you to be able to scroll this and read it, and also to make the process more interactive. I would really recommend that you hit the play button and listen to Amira's voice while she's telling the story. I think that helps a lot, at least to give you that immersion that you need. If you scroll all the way down, you'll see a little bit about Amira's work and which organization from our local partners she's from. Great. Go back a little bit here to show you another example. Obviously, one of the also really cool stories that I've read. This cohort is a representation of a different community, to be honest. When we first launched the project, we were talking about Palestinian Israeli activists only, but we said there's a lot of people who passed through this conflict, who were affected by this conflict in one way or another. And Murid's story is one of these great stories that you probably need to learn. And I love the title of The Outsider. I don't think you're an outsider, Murid, but it's a very intriguing title. All right, I don't want to burn all this, so I'll give you some more space for you to go back and read it. In addition to all this stuff, oh, sorry. In addition to this stuff, we also have the first cohort story, minus the visual representation, obviously. The first cohort we concluded last year. There's more stories here. There's still a lot of photos for you to go through and audio logs. This is probably the best way to learn more about these activists and people who live here. Like I said, this project was created in mind about creating a culture of co-resistance, because after the event that happened in May, ALLMEP, Bite of Hope, and PENDULUM were thinking about the future of activism, the identity that we need to create for a future generation, and being able to create those platforms where people could talk about the conflict in a different way, as long as we could move the needle forward and challenge the status quo. And that's, I think, about it. If I know how to end this, that would be great. Yeah, there it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wasim. Thank you for that. I will send you the link to the website and other useful links by the end of this event. And now I'm proud to present Saskia Keeley. She's a photo activist and workshop facilitator who worked in various settings, including in Israel and Palestine. In her workshop, Saskia explores how photography and listening can be helpful in global conversations towards peace and coexistence and within divided communities. Saskia was a mentor to one of our activists, Pita, in this year's program. Thank you so much for that, Saskia. Please go ahead.
Thank you, PENDULUM, ALLMEP, and Bait of Hope for organizing the East Storytellers. It is always a great honor and pleasure to be in a community with peace activists and change makers. Storytelling, like we explored in this project, moves me and motivates me. I feel that storytelling holds more possibility for change than we can begin to imagine. In my work, I always look to create a support system where I can accompany individuals toward opportunities where together we can build a more equitable world, a more just society, with however small steps. It was really wonderful to work with Peta to discuss together how we could illustrate her light and her passion, her faith that she describes as a burning flame. And I quote Peta, she says, "As a Jewish woman, I identify with the women of all faith who fight the battles for equality." Peta, like the vast majority of my participants in the photo workshops, is not a photographer. There were some challenges that we needed to work through. Peta doesn't own a camera, her phone was going to be the lens she would use. Peta wasn't also quite sure what it was that she could illustrate in just a few days. Her poetic prose came first and was the inspiration behind the visual anchors. A series of 5 beautiful images of her dancing in places of deep meaning and symbolism. I am so grateful for this collaboration that brought me back, although virtually, to a place that I've come to love, Jerusalem and the West Bank. And so the photo workshops that I facilitate internationally did start in the West Bank. At the request of Roots Shorashim Judur, we created a dialogue between Israeli and Palestinian women with the camera as the common tool, seeking understanding between neighbors who have no other point of contact. There is no illusion that photo workshops are going to end the conflict, but they can be small steps along the way towards humanizing the other and understanding one another a bit more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Saskia. I hope you guys could see some of the footage that we were sharing. Okay, good. Thank you again to all the mentors. And we're going to hear from one more mentor who is with us today, Nabil Kanan. He's the founder and director of Station in Beirut, Lebanon. It is a hybrid cultural space dedicated to presenting bold contemporary content. He's based these days between Beirut and Geneva and was also, as I said, a part of the mentorship program this year, working with WARDA. So Nabil, thank you for being a part of this, and especially in these challenging times. Thank you for joining us today, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for inviting me to, inviting Station to be involved in this project. From a distance, I've been around Beit of Hope, not such a big distance, actually quite close to all the initiatives and efforts I've been doing over the years. And myself in Beirut, actually, we set up an art space because we really believe in the power of arts and culture as the transformative power of arts and culture to bring people together, to promote critical thinking, to kind of work with the magic that art in the broad sense, from, you know, architecture to zoos, maybe A to Z. We do theater and dance and music and markets. We do a lot of different things, but we believe that by bringing people together in artistic context, by creating cultural experiences and storytelling at the root of all this, you can already open a dialogue, invite people to understand the other. I think the word humanize was out there, but also to question, you know, the power mechanisms that create, distribute, and represent the other. So working on a project like this with Wardi was very, very cool for me also because you know, Wardi is a teacher. Her base, I think, is in chemistry, but she also teaches leadership. It was very interesting to hear her perspective as an Arab Palestinian Israeli in Haifa. You know, the parcours that she's had, the trajectory she's had, what brought her around to activism, understanding how, you know, it's not easy, obviously, for all of us in the whole region. But I imagine that for a profile like her and others like her in Israel and in Palestine, it's very brave to be doing what they're doing. And we talked a lot, actually, about role models. And being able to capture and represent people who are actively moving towards alternative solutions besides the ongoing violence, and how to encourage others to take part in this peace movement, and how telling one's personal story and the different engagements that they've taken in their lives can really be inspirational. So Wardi was definitely inspirational to me. It was a pleasure meeting her, and I felt her excitement about getting more into visual storytelling. Totally encourage her, and I hope the rest of you have also, through this project, felt the power of visual storytelling and multimedia now going online. And so for me, I would invite you, for whoever of the participants in this cohort decide to continue to continue doing what you're doing. It's important. I keep saying it in Beirut that all other things that we've tried don't work. Give some space to the artists and creative expression, storytelling, and let's try and do things differently. You know, at the base, once you rip out the politics, we're all the same. You know, we all love hummus and all the good things. So, you know, let's we all want a better future for the generations ahead. There's just been too much suffering. So I encourage you all. I wish I could be there to give hugs to all of you, but I really look forward to discovering the beautiful work. Thank you. Thank you, Wardi.
Thank you, Nabil. It was a pleasure and was interesting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nabil. Thank you, guys. Now I'd like to present Rawan Ode. Rawan is a Palestinian American. She lived half her life in Brooklyn and the other half in Nablus, Palestine. Rawan has worked with Women's World Banking on gender lens investments in the Middle East, North Africa region. Rawan is currently the managing director of New Story Leadership for the Middle East. Her most recent project is #SheLeads, a gender lens leadership program for badass Palestinian and Israeli women. And her motto is, don't talk about us without us. Rawan was a participant in East Storytellers and will now share the story she has created for a mutual project. Rawan.
Thank you, Ram, and thank you everyone for coming. I'm really excited. I just need to X out of this just a moment. I can't remember a time when I didn't want things to change. I was born in Palestine, raised in New York. We were a struggling family of 7, crammed into a 1-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. One day when I came home from school, Dad broke the big news. We were going back to Palestine. Before I knew it, I was in Hawara, a village occupied by angry men in uniforms and loaded guns, the Israeli army. There, my movement was no longer under my control, but decided by the Israeli checkpoints. My body no longer belonged to me. What I wore was dictated by the village men. As a Palestinian and a woman, I was seen, but not heard. I remember the first time I saw an Israeli soldier kill a Palestinian teenager. The look on that soldier, not much older than me, showed me that for him, it was normal. But that night, I cried myself to sleep and I prayed that I would open my eyes and be back in the Brooklyn apartment I had so despised. The 5 a.m. call of masjid told me I was still in Hawara. But right then and right there, I decided I wouldn't let my circumstances define me. I took my pain, my trauma, my hurt to connect, to give, and to influence. I realized that my power was to transform my tears into a no that the world might hear. I stood up for the girl in my neighborhood to say no when she was forced to marry her rapist. I stood up for my brother to say no when he was arrested by the Israeli army. I stood up for no whenever I saw injustice. And the world listened. Congress people listened, ambassadors listened, but most importantly, my Israeli counterparts listened too. I do what I do because the scream of no is the cry of my generation and the promise of a greater yes
to a future worthy of our dreams and not our fears. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rawan. It was a real pleasure getting to know you and your story. We would like to hear from one more of our participants, Pita. Pita Jones-Pelach is an educator, an activist, journalist, director of education at the Elijah Interfaith Institute. She's the senior fellow at the Kiverstein Institute and co-founder at Praying Together in Jerusalem. She's also an active member of Women Wage Peace, a radio reporter, and was a participant in this year's cohort, and will share a bit about how she experienced the program. Pita.
Thank you. You know, storytelling was a parent or a grandparent at bedtime. It always began with once upon a time and ended with happily ever after. Only later I heard Hasidic stories with great spiritual depth and beauty, and I read stories from Peretz, the great Yiddish storyteller. I shared these stories with my students and then my own children, and I knew that stories told right are a powerful means to share a message. As I engaged in interfaith dialogue, I heard many different stories from others. Some were stories of pain, many were stories of love. My friends encouraged me to share my own story, my journey of faith, but I felt inadequate. Mine is not a story of triumph over pain or fighting off oppressors. It is a story of love, hope, and empathy, and I've struggled to tell it, often because the story of the other felt far more important. Stories counter ignorance better than textbooks do. I thought I could be a storyteller on behalf of those who could not speak out and encourage others to do the same, to inspire empathy, dialogue, and peace. But how to start and where? I was aware that the new media, especially social media, provided new platforms for storytelling and the potential for new audiences to hear those stories, but my understanding of these platforms was very limited. When Women Wage Peace offered participation in this course, I gladly took up the opportunity. Hamilton had been trying to teach me to be a storyteller, but I wasn't sure that I had the personality or the drive to be effective, and I knew I didn't have the skills. I thought the course couldn't hurt. I was not prepared for how much it would change me. I still don't have great skills, but I have improved, and I know what I need to know. I certainly have the drive, even a passion, to be a storyteller for peace in the Middle East, thanks to this course. The first lesson for me was to focus on the audience. Whom do I want to hear my story? And that's lots of people. I've seen the power of fewer words. I think about the balance between the visual and the verbal. I even learned a few tricks about photography and videography, well out of my usual skill set. One of the most important aspects of the course for me was to be with these marvelous activists of all ages and backgrounds, each with a unique story and contribution. From those who capture the entire story in one photograph, to those who speak with passion, to those whose actions speak louder than their words, to those who fight from within for their own communities, or those who want to make a difference from outside. You are all heroes, and it has been my honor to share a Zoom screen with you. Seeing my story alongside yours gives me great pride. To Ram and Noah, you are so professional and so empathetic. May you continue to be peacemakers by helping us to be more effective. To Saskia for showing me what I wanted to show others. To ALLMEP and to my sisters in Women Wage Peace, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your kind words. That's amazing to hear. I really appreciate that. Now, I also want to extend our thanks and give a shout out. You know, we've had a lot of people and organizations working in this project. We've had our wonderful participants, mentors, jury members, ALLMEP, Beit of Hope. We've also had amazing guest lecturers coming in and helping us teach our activists some new tools. One of which is here tonight with us, Yuval from Milk Media. I want to say a big thank you to you before I move on. So thank you. And now I would like to present Mera Rimmer. Mera is the co-founder and chairwoman of Beit of Hope, a Swiss organization supporting Israeli and Palestinian civil society peace-building initiatives. Bait of Hope currently supports a pool of 19 initiatives by giving funds for their projects are visibility and capacity building opportunities. Mara, thank you for being here, please.
Thank you for having me here. I just want to say that Saskia is always here with me. That's the picture you saw in the film. And I was actually at that, this clip you showed, Saskia, reminded me so much. I was there and it brought back such amazing memories. So thank you for sharing that. After all these inspiring speeches, the only thing I want to say is well done to the participants for their hard work. It was an honor also to be partners with ALLMEP and PENDULUM. Noah and Rom, you did a fantastic job. It was not easy to coordinate this, this workshop and all the rest, website and so on. Our purpose as Bait of Hope is to support Israeli and Palestinian peace builders. So one way of supporting is to give them visibility and to echo their voice. And this workshop is a tool, a good tool to do that. So that's why we are involved in this workshop. And the other thing that I would like to say is thank you to the mentors and to the jury members who gave so much time on a benevolent basis. I really don't take it for granted because it's time consuming. And specifically a big thank you to my friends in Geneva, in the Geneva Bait of Hope circles, for dedicating so much time to this workshop as mentors and grantees. And we will not, the adventure will not stop here. We will continue, try and give more visibility to these stories in every way we can. We are thinking of potential exhibits in Geneva or elsewhere, either online or in presence. The COVID situation will tell us, but we will try to optimize as much as we can this amazing experience. So thank you, and good to see you all.
Thank you, Mara. Thank you. We are actually reaching the end of our program, and we have some final closing remarks from Huda. Huda joined ALLMEP, as its first on-the-ground regional director in 2015. She has years of experience in conflict transformation and peace building, social justice and activism and advocacy. She has long been a leader in grassroots initiatives focused on including women in political arenas and track 2 diplomacy in Palestine, Israel, and internationally. She's an expert in these issues such as social change, education, activism, women's leadership, and conflict analysis in Palestine and Israel. Huda, it's good to see you as always, and please.
Thank you, Noah. I'm humbled in front of these pictures and these stories. As I wrote in the chat, it's an act of courage to tell your story because you expose parts of you that normally you are not aware of. And sometimes this is a good thing because you are on the right path for liberation, especially when it comes to women. And I'm sorry to be biased for women at this point. It's important to acknowledge that stories are us. And because they are us, we need to hold to them so dearly, because if we don't, we will be forgotten and we will not know why we are doing what we are doing. Thank you, Pendulum. Thank you, ALLMEP. Thank you, Mehra, Bait of Hope. Thank you to all of the mentors who are from all over the world, the educators who participated in a very courageous act of liberation. This is how we push against dominant narratives. This is how we push against dehumanization. This is how we push against otherization. In the Middle East, the stories were always told in a communal sense. And I'll use the Arabic phrase, "Ar-rawi wal-rawiya," the storyteller. It's always been in a circle, people listening to someone telling a story of courageous women and men, and we all learned from that. Stories are our grandmothers, our roots, and our question of existence. For that, stories are a form of resistance. Thank you again. I wish one day that our stories will be heard by the entire world And for that wish to happen, we start today by sharing these stories. Don't be afraid of sharing these stories. If the storytellers put themselves out there, we should give them that push to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Huda. Especially what you're speaking about grandmothers, yeah, in my story.
Thank you so much, Huda, and thank you all for being here with us tonight. As you can see in the chat, Nick from ALLMEP has sent a few links for you guys to share in your communities, in your networks, on your platforms, because if no one hears about this work of ours, about the stories of our amazing activists, then, you know, what difference does it make in a way? So we would really appreciate it if you can help us create a buzz around this, if you can share these stories far and wide, so we can continue this work for years to come and for many more cohorts. And again, a huge thank you to everyone who has participated in this event and for being here with us tonight, and hopefully see you soon on the next launch event. Thank you all.
Thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Hope to see you again.
Thank you,
Thank you, everybody.
Shukran.